Alright, welcome to the bonus video. You're here because you're either too smart or you think you're very smart. So anyway, in the last video, we did end off by talking about how enzymes are specific in action. Right, and I mentioned how every enzyme can only act on one type of food substance. So we gave the example of amylase and two food molecules, fat and starch. Now we knew that amylase can only act on starch, right? Amylase can only bind to and can only act on starch. If we try to make fat go into amylase, fat cannot fit into amylase. So amylase cannot digest fat, so this cannot work. And you need a different enzyme for fat. You need lipase. Now, why are enzymes specific in action? Well, to answer this question, we need to look closer at the enzyme. So here's amylase, our enzyme. Now every enzyme has what we call an active site. This active site is a pocket or a depression in the enzyme. So my diagram here's my active site, this is the pocket, and it is the part of the enzyme that binds to the food molecule. So starch binds to amylase, binds to the active site of amylase. Starch does not bind to other parts of amylase, right? It cannot bind to this part or to the back. It can only bind to the active site. So enzymes are specific in action because of the specific shape of their active site. Now amylase here has an active site, right? This is the active site. And the active site has a very specific shape. Of course, I don't want you to think that enzymes are flat and two-dimensional, right? They're actually more like, they're actually three-dimensional, and the active site is not just like a two-dimensional shape. It is more complex than that. Okay, but either way, the active site has a very specific shape. In this case, I represent it as a square shape. And that is what causes amylase to be specific. Because the shape of every enzyme's active site only matches the shape of the food molecule that it acts on. Or if I say it differently, the shape of each enzyme's active site is complementary to the shape of the food molecule it acts on. So the shape of amylase's active site is complementary to the shape of starch. Right? The shape of the active site of amylase matches the shape of starch, but it does not match the shape of fat. Alright, and that is why amylase can only act on starch and not fat. That is why amylase is specific in action. Now scientists have come up with a model to explain how and why enzymes are specific in action. And this model is called the lock and key hypothesis. The lock and key hypothesis. Now in this model, the lock and key hypothesis, they think that enzymes act like a lock, right? So here's my lock. Enzymes act like a lock, while food molecules act like a key, right? So these are my food molecules. Another way to call food molecules is a substrate. A substrate is what an enzyme acts on. Alright, so in this case, the enzyme is like a lock, right? It has a pocket, right? Just like all your locks have a little hole to put the key in. That pocket is called the active site. And the substrate, in this case our food molecules, fit into the active site, just like a key fits into the lock. And this fit is very specific, right? Every lock can only fit one kind of key. Right? And what's important is that the shape of the pocket, the shape of the active site, matches the shape of the food molecule or substrate. In the same way that the shape of the key matches the shape of the lock hole. Alright, so this is the reason why enzymes are specific in action. Okay, let's end off with a quick check. Firstly, enzymes are proteins. Enzymes, what the rate of chemical reactions? They speed up the rate of chemical reactions. Enzymes remain unchanged at the end of the reaction. Amylase acts on what? What does amylase enzyme act on? Starch, right? And it breaks starch down to maltose. Okay, lipase acts on fats and breaks it down to fatty acids and glycerol. Finally, proteins are digested by protease. Alright, that's the end of enzymes. Please continue to read up more on this topic. Enjoy the e-learning, and you'll get a worksheet on Thursday as well to be finished over that weekend. Alright, see you